You hear conflicting advice concerning blood sugar every time you browse the internet. Somebody informs you to consume a particular fruit, whereas the next individual vehemently prohibits it. It is overpowering and eventually goes away. Many elderly people are terrified to consume anything at all. It is devastating when the basic pleasure of eating during your golden years become a never-ending cause of worry. Let's ignore all of those unfounded rumors for the time being. We learn about the medication that God has prescribed. I'm going to tell exactly as in a few minutes. Over 60, this amazing fruit restores digestion and bone strength fast now easily. So you start wondering quietly, when did this begin? Because it doesn't happen all at once, it creeps in slowly, meal by meal, day by day, until one day your body just doesn't feel the same anymore. And what's uncomfortable is, most people accept this as normal aging, something unavoidable, something you're supposed to live with. But what if that's not entirely true? What if part of the problem isn't your age, but something your body has quietly stopped getting without you even noticing? And here's where it gets surprising, because the answer isn't in a new supplement or some complicated routine. It's something simple, something familiar, something most people already have access to, but completely overlook. That's why the idea of God-prescribed medicine sounds exaggerated at first, almost unbelievable. But there's a reason this idea has existed for so long. Because when you understand what actually changes inside your body after 60, it starts to make a different kind of sense. There are a few everyday foods that seem ordinary on the surface, but after a certain age, the way your body processes them, absorbs them, even reacts to them, quietly shifts. And depending on how you use them, they can either support your digestion and strength, or slowly become something that does far less than you think. So the real question is, are the foods you trust every day actually helping your body right now? Or have they just become a routine that no longer works the way it used to? And the first one might not be what you expect. And this is where things start to get a little uncomfortable. Because what most people are never told is that after 60, your body doesn't simply slow down. It starts responding differently to the exact same foods you've been eating your entire life. And the strange part is, you don't always notice it immediately. One day a meal feels completely normal, and then suddenly another day, that same meal leaves you feeling heavy, bloated, or just off, without any clear reason. And most people assume it's just a random bad day, or just part of getting older. But here's what's actually happening underneath. Your digestion is no longer processing food with the same efficiency it used to. Your absorption of nutrients has quietly changed, and your internal response system is not as predictable as it once was. So even when you think you're eating the same healthy foods, your body may not be getting the same results anymore. And that's the part most people miss, because it's not just about what you eat anymore, it's about how your body is reacting to it right now. Two people can eat the exact same meal, and one feels light, active, and energized, while the other feels tired, sluggish, and uncomfortable. So the real question is not just, what changed in your diet? It's what changed inside your body without you noticing. Because hidden in this shift is something very important, something subtle, but powerful, that quietly decides how your body handles almost everything you eat. And surprisingly, one of the clearest signs of this shift shows up in something very ordinary, a fruit you've probably eaten your whole life, without ever questioning what it's actually doing inside your body now. But after 60, its effect is no longer the same, and if you're not careful about how you use it, it can quietly contribute to the very problems you're trying to avoid. And that's exactly where most people unknowingly get it wrong. Now let's talk about something most people completely underestimate, because when you hear dates, you probably think of something simple, sweet, harmless, just a natural snack you eat without thinking twice. But after 60, something subtle changes inside your body, especially in the way it handles natural sugars. And this is where it gets interesting. Have you ever eaten something sweet in the evening, and instead of feeling energized, you feel a strange heaviness, or your body just doesn't feel as settled as it used to. Most people ignore that feeling, but it's actually a sign that your digestion is reacting differently than before. Because dates are not just quick energy like most people believe. Inside the body, they create a much slower, deeper digestive effect, almost like adjusting the pace of your gut without you noticing it. And that's exactly why they create two completely different reactions in different people. Some people feel light and supported after eating them, while others feel uncomfortable or slightly heavy, even though they ate the same thing. And the surprising part is, it's not really about how many you eat. It's about when you eat them, and what your body is already doing at that time. Because after 60, your digestive rhythm becomes more sensitive, and even small timing mistakes can change how a food behaves inside your system. So the real question is not whether dates are good or bad. It's whether you are actually eating them in a way your body can still handle properly today, or the same way you always did, without realizing your system has changed. And this is where most people unknowingly go wrong. Because when they hear something like dates are good or dates are bad, they immediately go into extremes. Either they completely avoid them, or they start eating them freely thinking, it's natural, so it must always be safe. But after 60, your body doesn't respond to extremes anymore. It responds to patterns, timing, and consistency. And here's something worth thinking about. Have you ever eaten something you believed was healthy, but still felt heavy, sluggish, or uncomfortable afterward? Not because the food was wrong, but because the situation inside your body was different at that moment. That's where dates become misunderstood. Because most people assume the problem is quantity. But in reality, the more silent factor is timing. And timing changes everything. Even the same fruit, eaten at the wrong time of day, can create a completely different response inside your digestive system. Sometimes subtle, sometimes noticeable hours later. And because the reaction is delayed, most people never connect it back to what they ate. That's why you'll find two completely opposite experiences with dates. Some people feel light, steady energy, while others quietly start avoiding them because they don't suit them anymore. But the truth is not the fruit itself. It's how it's interacting with a body that no longer functions on the same internal rhythm it once did. And the real risk here is simple. Not the fruit, but the assumption that your body still responds to it the same way it did years ago. Because that single assumption is where most silent digestive discomfort actually begins, without any obvious warning at all. Now let's move into something even more interesting. Because if dates were misunderstood, then pomegranate is something that most people completely underestimate. On the surface, it looks simple, just another seasonal fruit, slightly sweet, slightly sour, something you eat without thinking much about it. But have you ever wondered why this fruit has been mentioned for centuries in traditional healing systems, almost like it was never meant to be just food? And more importantly, have you noticed that when your energy starts dropping faster than before, or when even small physical effort feels heavier than it used to, it doesn't always feel like a stomach issue. It feels deeper, like something in your system isn't moving the same way anymore. That's exactly where pomegranate becomes interesting. Because it connects to something most people never think about consciously, your internal circulation system. The way blood moves, the way oxygen spreads, the way nutrients actually reach different parts of your body. And when that flow slows down even slightly with age, everything starts to feel different. Not all at once, but gradually. Digestion feels slower. Recovery takes longer. And even your body doesn't feel as responsive as it used to. But here's where it gets surprising. Pomegranate isn't powerful just because you eat it. It becomes meaningful based on how it's consumed. Because many people unknowingly miss the part that actually carries most of its effect. And treat it like a normal fruit, instead of something that interacts with your internal system in a very specific way. And that's why two people can eat the same fruit, but experience completely different results inside their body. So the real question becomes, are you actually getting the real benefit from it? Or just a surface-level version of what it could be doing inside your body after 60? And this is where things become even more surprising. Because when it comes to pomegranate, most people think they are doing something healthy simply by drinking its juice. It feels easy, it feels clean, and it feels like the most efficient way to get the benefit. But here's something almost nobody pays attention to. Juice and whole fruit are not processed the same way inside your body. Especially after 60, when your digestion becomes more selective and less predictable than before. Have you ever noticed something that used to feel perfectly fine suddenly doesn't give you the same result anymore, even though you didn't change anything? That's exactly the kind of silent shift happening here. Because when pomegranate is consumed only as juice, you are often removing the part that changes how slowly and steadily your body responds to it. And what's left behind is something your system processes very quickly. Sometimes too quickly for your current digestive balance. And that's where most people unknowingly go wrong. Not because the fruit is harmful, but because the form they are consuming it in no longer matches how their body works today. Even more interesting is this. The way this fruit is structured naturally influences how your body handles it. But once that structure is broken down into juice, the effect changes completely, without most people ever noticing it. So it still feels like you are doing the right thing. But the internal response becomes much less noticeable than expected. And that's why many people end up thinking, maybe this fruit doesn't work for me anymore. When in reality, it's not the fruit that changed. It's the form of consumption that no longer aligns with how their body processes it today. So the real question becomes very simple. Are you actually consuming pomegranate in a way that still matches your body after 60? Or are you unknowingly removing the part that makes it work in the first place? Now let's talk about the third fruit. And honestly, this is the one most people either completely overlook or underestimate without even realizing it: figs. Because unlike other fruits that feel obvious in their purpose, figs don't really try to stand out. They feel soft, simple, almost too ordinary to be important. And that's exactly why most people ignore them. But have you ever wondered why something so simple has quietly stayed in traditional diets for centuries? Across different cultures, different regions, almost as if people instinctively valued it for something deeper than just taste. Because here's where it connects to something most people don't think about after 60. It's not just that digestion slows down. It's that your body becomes less efficient at handling and using key nutrients, especially those linked to strength and structure in the body, like calcium and other minerals your bones depend on. Now here's the real question. Are you actually getting the benefit from what you eat, or just consuming it without your body fully using it? Because this is where figs become interesting. Not because they suddenly fix anything in a dramatic way, but because they quietly support something much more important underneath. The process that allows your body to actually absorb and utilize those nutrients in the first place. And that's the part most people completely miss. They focus on bones as the final result, but forget that the real foundation is built much earlier. Inside digestion, absorption, and how efficiently your body processes what you give it. And when that system becomes less efficient with age, even a good diet can start feeling less effective than it used to. So it's not always about eating more. Sometimes it's about whether your body is still capable of using what you already eat. And figs sit right in that hidden space, between digestion and actual nourishment, influencing something most people never notice, until the effects slowly start showing up much later than expected. So the real question becomes, is something this simple actually playing a role in something as important as your bone strength, without you ever realizing it? Now when you bring all three of these fruits together, dates, pomegranates, and figs, something interesting starts to appear that most people completely miss when they look at them separately. Because on their own, they just look like ordinary healthy foods. But after 60, something changes inside your body. They don't work in isolation anymore. They start interacting with the same internal systems that are already becoming more sensitive with time. And this is where the real realization begins. Because your body doesn't function in separate compartments anymore like most people assume. Digestion, circulation, and nutrient absorption. They slowly become part of the same connected system. Have you ever noticed something strange? When your digestion feels off, your energy drops too. And when your energy drops, even your joints and bones feel it more than usual. That's not random. That's your internal system becoming more interconnected as it becomes less efficient with age. And this is exactly why these fruits start to matter more than people realize. Because each one is quietly linked to a different part of that system. Dates influence how your gut handles and releases energy. Pomegranate influences how that energy is carried through your blood. And figs influence how your body actually absorbs and utilizes what reaches it. But here's what most people get wrong. They assume the benefit is automatic, just because something is healthy. But after 60, nothing works automatically anymore. It depends on whether your body is still responding the same way it used to, and whether these foods are actually being used in a way that matches your current internal condition, not the way your body functioned years ago. And that's why some people start noticing subtle changes. Feeling lighter after meals, less stiffness in the morning, better overall comfort in daily movement. But they rarely realize these changes don't come from one big thing. They come from small things quietly working together over time. So the real question now is not whether these fruits are useful. It's whether your body is still in a state where it can actually respond to them the way it's supposed to. Right now, today. And when you step back from all of this, there's a much simpler truth sitting underneath everything we've discussed. It was never really about labeling foods as good or bad. And it was never about blaming one fruit for how your body feels today. The real issue is awareness. Because after 60, your body doesn't fail suddenly. It communicates slowly, through small signals that are easy to dismiss at first. A little heaviness after meals, a bit more stiffness in the morning, slight changes in energy that don't feel important on their own. But over time, they start forming a pattern. And the reason most people miss it is simple. Life doesn't stop for these changes. So the body adjusts quietly, while the mind normalizes everything. But something shifts the moment you start noticing this pattern. You stop seeing food as just routine, and start seeing it as information your body is constantly responding to. And once that shift happens, even simple things start to feel different. Because now you're no longer reacting late to discomfort. You're starting to understand what your body has been communicating all along. So when you think about dates, pomegranates, and figs now, it's no longer just about three fruits. It's about understanding how your body responds to everyday things in ways you may have never paid attention to before. And maybe the most important question you're left with is this. Not whether you are eating the right things, but whether you are still noticing the small signals your body is sending you. Or whether they've become so normal that you no longer recognize them as signals at all.